And welcome back to the Armchair podcast. We've got a great segment here with Armand Seiti. He'll let you know where to find him on Twitter and all that later, but we're just going to dive right into Illinois football and Illinois basketball. But first, Armand, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
I am doing great, ready to talk some Illinois sports. It's been a while for us. We haven't done this podcast in a few months, so Alex and I are pretty excited.
That's. I'm excited too, man. I loved your podcast before, and I'm glad to be on.
Awesome. Well, we have some sad news to report that just happened about 10 minutes ago or so, right before we started recording this. And Luke Ford will not be suiting up for Illinois in the 2019 season. He has been denied eligibility for the season, and he will suit up for the Illini in 2020. So, Armand, Alex, what are your first reactions there?
Man,
Uh, well, go ahead, Alex.
thanks. Okay, so it just sucks because Illinois needs all the help it could get, and Luke Ford is such a huge piece, especially on the perimeter when you have all those questions at wide receiver. Yes, you have Trayvon Sidney coming in, you have Ricky Smallings, you're in the mix for another wide receiver that could transfer in, but you just need as many weapons as you can get, especially since the quarterback position is also in flux. So it's just a huge blow. The tight end position, you know, not only as a receiver but as a blocker too. Luke Ford just upgrades you to another level, and especially if you bring in Brandon Peters, the transfer from Michigan. I think Brandon Peters, watching his film, he used his tight ends a lot as a receiver, so he loves those short passes. So Luke Ford would have been huge, absolutely huge in that, and it's just a blow. In terms of the actual waiver, I'm not actually, hot take. I'm not actually surprised, just because like reading those rules, he didn't follow the guidelines the NCAA had for the rules to be eligible. So it's not super surprising to me, actually. Obviously, it sucks, but I'm not terribly surprised. But then again, it's just a massive blow for Illinois on the field.
Yeah, I agree with you, Alex. Going off of what you said, the glass in these situations, the glass is always half full, half empty. So in terms of the half full kind of thing, it's just look at the positives. For one, I'm not like I think Illinois can get to a bowl game, and Luke Ford playing this year would have helped them do that this year. But at the same time, it's like there's so much uncertainty around the quarterback position, as you mentioned, and just adding talent. I don't really know. It might be a blessing in disguise, honestly, just because you're gonna have what 2 years of Luke Ford still, right? So it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter where you're gonna use this. I personally think 2020 is the year Illinois is gonna just absolutely take off in football. I mean, you see all the recruits are bringing in on all that. The quarterback situation, you got to believe, will be figured out by then. You're still gonna have like Trayvon say you said he's gonna be there. Ricky Smalling will still be there. You're gonna lose Reggie Corbin, but you could possibly you're bringing in Reggie Love, so that's already comparable to Reggie Corbin. And then there's going to be pieces in 2020. So I think having Luke Ford sit in after a year, it sucks, but it actually might be a blessing in disguise.
You really think
Interesting.
it's a blessing in disguise? Like, what do you mean by that?
Just in the sense that there's so much stuff going around right now for Illinois. People, even with Luke Ford playing, even if he was playing, people would still be projecting Illinois to barely make a bowl game right now.
Right, I agree.
There's
Yeah.
there's so many there's so many issues right now that team needs to figure out. I think just from a recruiting standpoint, football has been going in on the grad transfer market, as we all know,
Hmm.
and they've been missing on a lot of players. Either you start missing like the quarterback situation. You had rumors about Khalil Tate from Arizona. You had rumors about Matt Fink, who's apparently coming to Illinois, and now recently, just a couple days ago, said no, he's staying at USC. I mean, just those types of situations where you think you're getting someone in and then you're not. It just it's not a negative vibe, but it's hard to build consistency. I think that's something that even if Luke Ford would have come in, it's a new system, new quarterback, everyone's learning. So he wouldn't have as big of an impact as he would if he learns the system, goes through it 1 year, and then plays 2 more years, having known and having gained all that knowledge.
Sure. So kind of like a Patrick Mahomes situation in Kansas City, where he saw the offense for a year and then came in and flourished on that. I see where you're going with that. Um, but as far as expectations for 2019, I mean, there's still a football season to be played there, right? So, what are your expectations for this team in the fall? You can give a win-loss projection, however you want to look at it, or are you just looking for more offensive or defensive progression, not necessarily making a bowl game, but if they win 4 games that are more competitive, is that a success for you? What are some of your expectations for the football season this year?
So I think for myself, I'm not one to just watch for growth and say, oh, like we'll not really care about this season as much. We just look at it from a growth standpoint, not really a winning standpoint. I don't think that's how you build a program. So I always want to make a bowl game, and I think that's the end goal right now. There's a lot of speculation about head coach Lovie Smith about, is this his make or break year? Does he need to make a bowl game this year to keep his job? And honestly, I don't think he does. I think if they got like 5 wins, which I think is very, very likely to happen, around 5 wins to 6 wins is very likely to happen. I think he'll definitely keep his job. I think that shows that they're that close, and all the talent that they're bringing in right now. If they take Lovey away, I mean, there's no telling what's going to happen to that talent. So I think expectations for this year, barring some crazy thing that goes on with the quarterback play and Isaiah Williams can't play, and they don't figure out the grad transfer market for a quarterback, I'd still say 5 to 6 wins, and the bowl game is what you want to see and what I expect to see.
Okay, so you're saying 5 to 6 wins is your projection? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. See, for me, like, I think 5 to 6 games is the expectation. I think at this point, especially year 4, and then you have your system in place. Different guys are, have been in your program for a number of years. That's the expectation. But in terms of the reality, I'm not convinced. Even with Brandon Peters, there's still so many ifs. Because you're getting this talent from like USC. You're getting Trayvon Sidney, Wally Batiku, and all those transfers, Richie Pettibon, but they're still unproven. They haven't consistently produced, even if they were at USC or Alabama. But then again, I'm glad that we have guys that USC, Alabama, etc. liked at one point. So, there's potential for this to be, a bowl game team and all that, but I'm still unconvinced, and I haven't seen anything that says, hey, like, this team's gonna be good. Because the defense, remember, it was the worst in the Big Ten. Lovey didn't really change anything other than saying, okay, I'm gonna take responsibility for it. The only thing that they're really adding to their defense, besides the young guys in Beeson and Shaman and etc., they're adding a lot of young guys, but they're not solidifying anything other than the guys are getting older. So I'm not 100% convinced. And then, Brandon Peters, will he work out? Hopefully, but it's not a for sure given thing. So honestly, I'm not convinced, and it wouldn't surprise me to see this team win 4 games. But then again, looking at their schedule, it's pretty easy. So, they should win at least 3 games if there's your positive there. But I'm not convinced, unfortunately. Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we all expect a bowl game this year. I think pretty much from the beginning. I think 2019 has kind of been a benchmark year to make a bowl game, the year to look at to to kind of just take that next step and to get to 6 wins. And I think it's possible they do it. Like you said, Alex, the schedule is pretty favorable. They could be 3-0 heading into Big Ten play, and they just need to win 3 games in the Big Ten to get to 6, which I know is a really hard thing to do, especially given Lovie has only ever won about 2 games. Like, that's the highest he's ever won in the season in the Big Ten. So it would take growth, but I think it's possible. I think 6 wins should be the expectation, but I think personally, if I had to put money on it or something, I would probably bet the 5 games. So I think the over under is 4.5. So I would take the over on 4.5, but not much higher than that. So that's
right.
my expectation.
Yeah, I'm hoping for obviously a bowl game, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if things didn't go right either. That's kind of where I'm at. And just the Bobby Roundtree news was just massive for me. That was the thing that kind of pushed me towards, being skeptical. And again, prayers to Bobby. Hope he comes back okay, not just in football but in life. So, again, prayers up to him. But this weekend, I think there's a pretty big recruiting scene. Armand, I know you have a couple big names that you want to shout out.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on this weekend. I'm pretty sure, Jalen St. John was a big 2019 Trinity kid that a lot of people have been, there's been rumors going around that could he commit this weekend? I don't know. I mean, he just tweeted something like, "Oh, if you're gonna pull the trigger, don't wait on it."
I hate when they do that, man.
So, and that's the thing. It's like, I do think Jalen St. John, I've been talking to him for months now, and he really loves Illinois. Yeah. I do think most of the Trinity kids, they are going to come to Illinois. I mean, they love Corey Patterson. He's a really, really great guy, great coach, and he's very personable, and I think that's a huge thing in this recruiting scheme that they're going to have to do this weekend. I mean, I was speaking to another recruit visiting this weekend, and it's 2021 Jordan Johnson Jr., running back from the state of Illinois. And he was telling me he was at Notre Dame this past, I think, a couple days ago at a Notre Dame camp. And I said, "So why are you coming to visit Illinois?" He's like, "Well, I think it's really important to keep your home state school on the map. Like that, it's important." And this kid, like, if you watch, he's not ranked yet. He's only a 2021 guy, so most rankings don't really come out for those guys. But he is a really, really talented kid. I mean, he almost kept pace with another Illini football recruiting target, Marcellus Moore. That kid, Marcellus Moore, is a speedster. I think you guys both know that. He's super fast. Yeah. Like, super fast. And this kid almost kept stride for him in a track and field competition. So, I mean, I think the future is looking up. The biggest thing I've discussed with some of my other friends in the Illini fan base was just, when is this staff going to learn how to close on recruits? Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest thing. Is they've done a great job of building relationships and all that. And you have to give that to Lovey. And, Mike Bellamy came in and he was really, really good as well. Corey Patterson, same thing. Kenoto Hudson, same thing. They're all really, really personable. Rod Smith. But at the same time, you got to find a way to close. Like, I understand Illinois football is not, where Notre Dame is. We're going to lose players like possibly AJ Henning, who's been, I think, going to a visit at Notre Dame this weekend. You could lose players to established programs, and that's not something that you should be mad about. But at the same time, if you're going to devote yourself to building relationships with these high caliber players, you got to find a way to close. And I think that's the biggest problem with Illinois football right now. There's potential, but they're still missing that closing part that's really letting them off the hook.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the same could be said for Illinois basketball in terms of closing. And we'll get to that in a bit. But one of the bigger recruiting visits that we have this weekend is actually a 29 guy that can be eligible 2019 and 2020. He's a USC former wide receiver, Josh Imiter Bebe. Armand, do you have any news on that?
All I've heard is that, for a couple weeks I've heard the same thing from some sources. Ryan Evan was one of my sources. But I've heard some things about him, coming to Illinois, and it was more around the time when Matt Fink was the previous grad transfer quarterback that was linked to Illinois. When he was deciding to come to Illinois, I think that was like almost like a package deal kind of a thing. But obviously that's not happening anymore. So I think Imador Bebe will be heading to Illinois. I do think it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But again, with all the misses lately, I don't want to put anything to, put my name on and say, oh yeah, I said he's definitely coming, because all these guys, you never know what happens at the very end of someone's recruitment. So
Right.
I think all things are looking good. All signs are pointing up for Illinois to land Imador Bebe, but I wouldn't put my signature on it.
Right. Yeah. I actually heard a couple things about Imiter Bebe. He's a freak athlete. I was YouTubing him and I saw a video, and his vertical is 47 inches, which is just absurd. That's higher than any other basketball player that I've even heard of. So he's a freak athlete. He's a really chiseled kid. Obviously, he didn't produce that much at USC, but when you have guys like Juju Smith-Schuster in front of you, it's going to be hard to produce. But he's a freak athlete. He's really chiseled, good body. He's more of a physical guy. I don't think he's like a speed guy, like a Jeff Thomas was, or Marcus Beeson. He's not a speed guy. He's more of a physical, like get through you kind of kid. I was listening to the Jeremy Warner show this morning, and Jeremy said that Virginia was going to be the landing spot for Imador Bebe right when he transferred, like immediately after Imador Bebe put his name in the transfer portal. But then Virginia took Dejan Brissett, who was initially committed to Illinois. So, things have kind of flipped in Illinois' favor in that regard. And if there's no buzz on like future visits, then I feel kind of good, given this, like you said, the staff's inability to close. If there's no visits scheduled like after this, then I think, Illinois got a good shot. And the opportunity's there, familiarity's there. So that's my take on Imador Bebe. Hopefully it all works out.
Yeah, and we're hoping the best for Illinois football this year. We hope they can land some guys from the upcoming weekend. But now we're going to transition into some basketball stuff. There hasn't been a ton of news that has come out recently, but Andy Katz of CBS Sports and NCAA.com has Illinois ranked at 21 in its top 36, I believe. And I know for a lot of people that's really, really high. So, Armand, we wanted to ask you what you think of that ranking. Is it too high? Is it too low, possibly? Or is it just right?
I think it's too early for any projections. I don't really like these early projections because, granted, the whole NBA draft kind of like, who's all the kids that are recruits are going to go to the draft or they're going to stay back in college. Granted, that whole thing is over and everything's set, but I think Illinois they have the potential to be ranked that high, but at least for Coffee Cockburn, I know a lot of people have been really, really high on Coffee Cockburn. Huge kid, right? I don't know what his weight is, but it's like, 280 plus, I think, pounds or something like that.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, okay, obviously he's going to be a huge force to deal with. I don't think anyone's going to push him out of the paint. But at the same time, the way Underwood wants to run his offense, they want to be quick. And that means you have to have mobile players. And I'm sure he's mobile. I've seen his passing. If he's going to make, a full court pass, an absolute bullet pass to Io down the court, running down the court or something like that, and that's how they're going to use him in the offense, sure, that's going to work perfectly. but I don't know about his fitness level for the type of offense that Illinois is trying to run, and I think that might be a problem early on in the season. So I think he could have an impact, but it's all depending on how his fitness level is going to be. And then I think you have the big three of Illinois, right? You have Trent Frazier, who's going to be a junior this year. You got Ayo Dosunmu, who's elected to come back to Illinois and not go to the draft this year. And he's going to be in for his sophomore year. And then Georgi Bashanishvili, that was like the freshman phenom that everyone adored because he came in as like a really, really under-recruited player. And I think he set the Illinois freshman scoring record, beat Deion
35.
Thomas's, right?
Yeah.
So I think those three are going to be crucial, and they've been highlighted in Andy Katz's polls on the March Madness websites. But I think they have depth, and the only thing I don't know about this Illinois team is kind of what you said with football. What is actually changing with this team? You add Coffee, which is great. You lose Aaron Jordan, and you lose Adonis De La Rosa, and you add what's his name?
Bernard.
Yeah, Bernard Kuma and Coffee Cockburn. So you're changing stuff, but not too much. The majority of the team's the same from a team that struggled a lot. I mean, they showed glimpses of absolute excellence, but at the same time, it's hard for me to just say, oh yeah, it's going to be a complete 180 from what it was last year. I think the team can take that step, just like you said in football. The players are there to take that step, but I'm not exactly sure if they should be ranked 21st in the poll.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think it's too high. Surprise, surprise. It's just, yeah, they can be a good team, but I think 21 is too high. A top 25 team, that's what, like a 5 seed at the NCAA tournament. I don't think that's likely. I think Andy, obviously, yeah, he has, a lot of experience in this. He's done this before. He's seen basketball for a number of years, but I don't think he knows sort of like the ins and outs and the sort of the nitty gritty of the program, so to speak. The funny thing is, people get on the fans that are saying like, oh, that's too high. I don't really agree with Andy Katz. But if Andy Katz put Illinois like 50th or 60th, those same fans would be, saying like, oh, Andy Katz doesn't know what he's talking about, all that, So it's one of those situations. I think I'm higher on Illinois basketball than most. Like I would put them probably like in the top 40, but I think 21 is just absurdly high, and I think there's still a lot of questions for this team. I think people sort of assume that Kofi will just slide in and everything will work out, but I don't think so. I think Georgie will be sort of pushed out of the post because of this. And I think the post is really where he shined. He's got to work on his jump shot. Hopefully he has been. Because you need spacing. You can't have two big guys like that just buried in the post. So I think Georgie will have to transition into more of a perimeter player. He's definitely going to have to work on that mid-range jump shot. Just because Kofi's going to take up so much space in the paint if he's on the floor. But I think people also assume that Kofi's just going to come in and light the world on fire because he's a 5-star big man. I think, with 5-star big men, they're going to show flashes, but they're also going to have games where it's like 3 points, 4 rebounds, and they fouled out, So kind of like what Jeremiah Tillman's freshman year was. There's flashes, there's games where you're like, oh, well, yeah, like give me that. But then there's games where it's incredibly frustrating. He's fouling out. He's making defensive mistakes, all that. So, there's a lot of questions for this. And then missing on TJ Holyfield was just massive because now you're relying on 2 sophomores and Alan Griffin and Kevin Jones on the wing. You're relying on Kipper Nichols, who knows what's going on. You're relying on DeMonte, who's still really, really unproven and kind of been underwhelming especially that last year. So I'm not convinced again. I still think there's a lot of ifs that have to go Illinois' way. And given how Illinois athletics are, like that never goes our way. So I still think that 21 is way too high. What about you, Zach?
Yeah, I think 21's too high. And I think a lot of it is based off that win streak they went on this past year. That was pretty great, where they beat teams like Michigan State, Ohio State, teams like that. Um, but I think it's ignoring a little bit too some of the blowouts, some of the bad games they played. So I think 21's a bit too high for me. I'm with you, Alex. Somewhere in the 40s is probably where I would put him. But Andy Katz also has Georgie Bishamishvili ranked seventh on his Malone Award picks. So he has Georgie with the seventh best odds to win it, ahead of guys like Trevion Williams of Purdue, E.J. Montgomery of Kentucky, and Jaden McDaniels of Washington. So what do you make of that, Armand? Georgie being ranked that high to win this award?
Again, I think it's more of just what you were saying about that win streak, right? So I'm pretty sure during that win streak, what they won against Michigan State, they beat Rutgers, and during that Rutgers game, that's when Georgie really was shining. You know, he had his career performance, and I think that ranking that Cats put out is really based off of those performances during that win streak. Because I mean, he looked unstoppable. He really did look unstoppable. But I think E.J. Montgomery and Trevion Williams are way more experienced in that sense. That I think Georgie could still be subject to a sophomore slump this year. You know, we never know. So I think Montgomery and Williams are going to be more of taking that leadership role. You know, they were on two really good teams this year, so they know how to win. They come from a winning culture. Georgie doesn't have that yet. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I don't know about putting him that high on the Malone watch list. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think he could be in for sophomore slump. Obviously, I'm hoping that he doesn't, but I think 7 is a little bit too high. So, going down the list, Michigan State, Xavier Tillman. You'd probably take Xavier Tillman over Georgia Bishamishvili. Just my opinion. And then Trevion Williams, you go to Wisconsin, there's like Nate Reavers. Maryland has what's the kid's name with the rec specs? Jalen Smith. Iowa has Luca Garza. Ohio State has the Wesson kid, and then EJ Liddell's coming in. Indiana has probably I think they have a 5-star kid coming in. Penn State, I think Lamar Stevens is back. I'm not 100% sure.
Yep, Lamar Stevens is coming back.
Yeah, so there's a lot of guys in the Big Ten that I think are just as worthy. I think Georgie, he's a good fit for the culture, and he's a good piece. But I'm not sure if I would be giving him that national recognition. Not yet. I love the kid. He's a great personality, but again, I just think it's a little bit too high, and I think Ed Katz is more positive than 95% of our fan base. So it's just I think it's a little too high. Again, I agree with the Ayo Dosunmu thing though. I think Ayo Dosunmu is a top 10 point guard in the country. Given what he was able to do, what he was able to show. So I definitely agree with the Ayo Dosunmu and I forgot what the name of that award is, but the list with the point guards. But Georgie, I'm a little bit not too sure about it.
Well, speaking of that list, sorry about that.
No, you're
good.
But Cole Anthony, I don't know if you guys really know much about Cole Anthony.
Yeah.
But I mean, that kid was left off that list. And granted, Ayo, I think, is a great point guard, just like you said. But to leave Cole Anthony off that list, I mean, that guy's a bucket machine.
Yeah.
He's a complete bucket machine. If you watch him play, I mean, I think he's a way better scorer than Ayo is or will be. But Ayo has length and I think more just a leadership mentality about him So I think maybe that went into the list. I don't really know, but
Yeah, but I think Cole Anthony's he's going to be a freshman. Io, he proved it against some big time opponents. He not only in the Big Ten play, but he was pretty good in the non-con too. Obviously, he had a little bit of a mid-year slump, but he was electric against Georgetown. He was really good against um, Michigan State and all those teams. So I think that's what went into it. But again, it's all subjective, and I'm
Yeah,
sure Cole was around that area.
yeah, for sure. I think Georgie is ranked a bit too high. I'm glad Andy Katz is high on Illinois. I mean, someone needs to be. It's
Right.
refreshing to read some of that in the national media. Even though if it is a little bit too high for my liking, it's still cool to see. Cool to see all that, and we all hope that Georgia has a great year. We all hope the team next year has an awesome year. But looking forward into the future, Derek Piper of Atlanta Inquirer put out some crystal balls recently, and the biggest one was to Adam Miller. He gave a crystal ball in Illinois' favor to Adam Miller for the 2020 class. So, Armand, do you have any insights on that? And what do you think of that crystal ball pick?
so yeah, I've been hearing for months now that it's been Adam Miller's really been looking at Illinois as in just that's his home state school, and he wants to stay at Illinois. I think some schools have really piqued his interest other than Illinois. I think there's been rumors to Kansas, there's been rumors to UCLA, and UCLA has been kind of down recently, so I don't really know about him going there, but that's a great program anyways. Kansas is another great program. So I've seen more and more rumors for Adam Miller to Illinois just because he's seen more of what Io's done at Illinois, and he thinks he might be able to do that. But if for some reason Io doesn't go to the NBA after his sophomore year at Illinois, I don't think Adam Miller is going to come to Illinois because he wants to be his own guy, leading his own team, and he wants to make his own legacy. And I don't think if Io's here, he's going to be able to do that because that backcourt's going to be way too crowded, and he's not going to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I don't think Iowa will be here after this year, even if they don't make the tournament. I think he's created enough traction for himself so he can move on. But with that being said, would you rather have? What's your take on all of the 2020s that Illinois is recruiting? Do you think they just need one guard, or do you take two, or what's your sort of wish list for that? Because there's a lot of guys that they've offered.
Yeah, so I've been in contact a lot with Namari Burnett, who's another guard as well, combo guard from Prolific Prep out in California, and he's a special player. I don't know if Adam Miller and him are really comparable, just because I think they're just two different players. I think Burnett excels at getting to the rim a lot more,
They
and
both like to
Adam
score.
Miller, yeah. And I think the thing is, Adam Miller is just a very, very gifted shooter. Like, he can just step into anything and knock it down. Burnett's more of that guy who's just he's gonna do those circus kind of finishes at the rim and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing. And then another guy I've been in contact with is DJ Stewart from Whitney Young High School in Illinois, and he's been
Blowing up.
on fire. Completely on fire at the Nike IYBL circuit in Indianapolis. I think I don't know exactly what it was, but he had, I think, the highest scoring performance of any guard at that circuit. And he was on fire. I think he had a game winner. It's like something like 40 something points, and he hit like 7 threes.
Yeah.
And I think he recently just went above Adam Miller in the rankings on 247. I think.
Yep. Yeah, for just the
So
247, yeah, he jumped at him.
and that's the thing. It's like you can't really go wrong with any of these guys.
Yeah.
I don't think Burnett. I think it's gonna be more of
That's a wish. That's more of a wish.
That's the thing. Is like I don't really think Burnett's gonna come.
No,
He might go
I doubt
stay
it.
out. I think he's gonna stay more West Coast. It's
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
like Oregon or something.
I think Oregon.
Those kids always go to Oregon.
Yeah, I think Oregon's a good bet. I think Arizona is another really good bet for him. But then you look at DJ Stewart. He loves Illinois. I mean, I'm in contact with him all the time. I think right now he's talking about he wants to get visits going to Illinois, Indiana, Texas. He's going this weekend to Texas.
Yeah. Louisville, I think.
Yes, Louisville. So, those are some big-time programs, again, that Illinois is going to have to try to close against. And that's something that we talked about earlier, that both staffs on football and basketball struggle to close on recruits. And they have the opportunity. I think now you see these crystal balls by Derek Piper and Jeremy Werner for Adam Miller. That's great. And I'm sure they have insight on this. But at the same time, it's like, I think it's just too early because I don't expect Adam Miller to make a decision anytime soon.
Yeah.
So it's like it's putting more hype into Adam Miller, and then you're just going to be let down if he doesn't come. So I think, think about it's great. Like, think about the possibility of Adam Miller coming, but it's not 100% yet. I don't think you should really put your money on him coming.
Yeah, I agree. I think you should try to get both, Adam and DJ, and then if one of those don't work out, you try to get at least another combo guard or shooting guard, etc. Just because you're losing Io, more than likely you are, and then your Andres Feliz is graduating too. He's a pretty big role, and then Trent's going to be a senior after not this year, but the year after the next. So. You want to build depth and build developmental pieces. The kid Kalkbrenner, the center at Trinity Catholic, that's another name that keeps popping up. But I just think, you want depth, and it's just so frustrating that they can't close some of these deals, especially the last two, sort of recruiting visits that we had with, TJ Holyfield and then Thomas Wolden Tensei. It's just, like, dude, come on, dude. Like, Brad Underwood, do people not like you? Like, me and Zach were having this conversation about how it's just really frustrating how basketball has issues closing on kids that are very, very obtainable, or it seems like they're in favor for, and then, they wait it out, and then 1 or 2 weeks later they go to some random other program. So I don't know, Zach. What do you think about those recruiting efforts?
Yeah, I think it is definitely early on Adam Miller, but I'm pretty optimistic about their chances there, as a lot of people are. I'm pretty tired of the misses on all these guys we're bringing in, and I'm not sure if it's Brad Underwood who's the issue. I know there's been some concerns about his likability and his presence to recruits when they come and visit. I know that's been in question some. So maybe it's some of that. Maybe they're just some bad luck in there. It's recruiting too. And so I think there's some blame to go around for all the misses, but I'm optimistic about some of the guys they can land in the 2020 class. And I'm excited about guys like Kofi Cockburn and then people like that. And I'm excited to see the difference they can make for the Illini. And yeah, I'm pretty optimistic about the upcoming season, despite all the misses.
Yeah, agreed. But I just want to bring up this question though. In comparing basketball and football, what would you, if you could go back in time and change one thing, what would you guys choose to change? So this is the first scenario. You can go back and have TJ Holyfield commit to Illinois instead of Texas Tech, or you could go back in time and you could pick two of the transfer flakes that happened and we can include Luke Ford on this since his waiver was denied. You could change the path of two of those transfer sort of mishaps, so to speak. Which one would you do?
That's a great question. I think for me, I'm going to take the football scenario because I think basketball can still make the tournament without Holyfield, if that makes sense. But I think football's in a bit more trouble as far as making a bowl game, and not just making a bowl game, but having a really, really nice season. I think if you get one of those transfer flakes back and stay there and committed, I think whether it's Luke Ford or someone else, I think the
Jeff Thomas.
Illinois team, Jeff Thomas, A.D. Miller, any of those guys, I think if you flip them, Illinois could be more than just a 5 or 6 win team, maybe a 7-win team or an 8-win team if everything went according to plan. And I think they left a lot of talent on the table in the transfer market with all the guys who said they were coming and then didn't. And I think Illinois basketball, with basketball, just get in the tournament. You never know what can happen. So I think basketball could still do it, get in and make noise there without Holyfield. But I think football, to have a really nice season, could have used a couple of those transfer guys to stay around.
Yeah. What about you, Armand?
Yeah, I have to agree 100% with Zach. I'd go football like 100 times out of 100 just because, again, what Zach was saying was, basketball is in a much better situation, right? TJ Holyfield was one guy. I think basketball, you're returning so much already. You already have so much talent. You only had to put 5 guys on a court at a time. It's different because you don't need to recruit as heavily to have that depth because you're only going to play like at most teams only play like 8-9 guys consistently throughout a game. Football is different. I think the opportunity to land players like Jeff Thomas, I know from a lot of my sources, the whole Khalil Tate thing from Arizona, that was there's a lot of like steam on that to Illinois. And I think if I could have had Khalil Tate or Jeff Thomas on this team, even if I didn't have necessarily Luke Ford playing this year, but just, get those types of talent in, it changes the culture. And I think that's the bigger deal for football right now is you have to change the culture. In 2019, when Illinois football was landing recruits like Isaiah Williams and Marquez Beeson, there was some momentum going around. It started the whole ILL Gang 19 movement kind of thing, the whole Liddyville movement. And then you lose coaches to Temple. Then you lose the momentum. And it just feels like it completely stopped.
You go to Temple, right?
I do, yeah. And that's the thing. It's like I'm actually in contact with Coach Thad Ward, who is coaching at Temple now. And he just like, when an opportunity, it's nothing against Illinois. It's just like when an opportunity presents yourself, you take it. If it's that kind of thing. And he was talking to me about the whole the movement in Illinois, or the Liddyville movement. And it's just like when you have all that momentum, you want it to sustain itself and find a way to sustain it. The whole losing players like Jeff Thomas when you thought you had him coming to Illinois. I mean, I remember that week vividly of when it was rumored that Jeff Thomas was coming to Illinois. Everyone was going insane. All Illinois fans were going insane because they're like, oh my God. Like,
finally.
This guy, exactly, finally, this guy can make a huge difference, an immediate impact. It's something that we haven't seen in a very long time since the
Aurelius Ben.
Yeah, Aurelius Ben or something like that. Like, that's the thing is, like, you had the momentum and then you lose players like that. The Luke Ford stuff, I'm not as mad about
distraught.
Just because, it's like, because, okay, there was already a smaller chance that he was going to play this year anyways. He had to get that waiver approved. Everyone knew that. The difference is Thomas and Tate and all these guys, if they had come, they'd be immediately eligible, and no one would say anything about it.
Yeah.
Now this whole thing is going on. It's like, so you don't have these players. Now you have the Luke Ford thing. It's like all that momentum has been stopped, and now you have to find a way to regain that. And then,
Mhm.
like we were saying this weekend, they're hosting a lot of big time recruits. A lot of 2019 guys that started the whole Ladyville movement are coming back to help recruit these guys. But it's hard to sustain that if you lose players that can make a big difference. And that's why I'd take the football players over the basketball players.
Yeah, honestly, when Jeff Thomas flipped back, I started laughing because I was like, "Hey, this is just so classic." But honestly, I would actually go the other way around. I would take Holyfield over the two transfer miscues. Just because football, this is going to sound really bad, but I think football would have been in the same position whether they had an AD Miller or Luke Ford. I think they still would have been in. It doesn't push them over to the top just to have, you know, those two guys. Like, they still have huge issues on the quarterback side. Even if you did get Matt Fink, I didn't think though that would make much of a difference. Your defense still has a lot of issues. The Bobby Roundtree news still stinks. So I think that football would have been kind of screwed regardless, as bad as that sounds. Again, I agree with you guys about basketball being fine without Holyfield. I still think they can make an NCAA tournament, but I think that having a guy like Holyfield just was so important, and it could have. It's the difference between being like an 11 seed and like a solid 7 or 8 seed, or even like a 6 seed. He is that important. He was a guy that knew the system. He fitted such a big hole at the 4 spot. You didn't have to rely on a big sophomore year from Alan Griffin or Tevin Jones. You had a guy that was proven in that exact same system, a guy that was familiar, a guy that's been to the tournament and been in games. So I just think that Holyfield could have easily been. If we had Holyfield right now, I'd be like, okay, we're making an NCAA tournament at the very worst. But now it's like, okay, we're on the bubble. That's where I'm at with Illinois basketball. So I would take the Holyfield thing, just because I still think football would be kind of screwed, anyways. So, the last question though, um, it's kind of similar to what I just said, but if you could go back in time and had the choice of reversing one, Derek McGee's hire, or two of the most important recruiting misses Lovie Smith has had. So any recruiting misses, whether it's Dele Adeoye or Merlin Robertson, any of those big name guys, Jeff Thomas the first time around, Luke Ford, you could pick two people that we've missed on and bring them to Illinois, or you could reverse the Derek McGee hire. What would you do?
I would probably reverse the Garrick McGee hire because I think if they had Rod Smith, I'm just going to assume that's who they hired instead. If they had hired Rod Smith, then I think this program is further along. Maybe you still have Keyshawn Vaughn on the roster. Maybe you still have um, other players who might have been utilized better if someone else had been at the helm other than Garrett McGee. But that's just my personal opinion. Maybe Armand has a different take. Maybe he'd take two misses. But for me, I would take back the hiring of Garrett McGee.
Yeah, I think for me, it's kind of going off of what Alex said on his last segment, where I think football kind of would have been the same, kind of screwed the same way. Just because when Garrick McGee was there, I mean, did they have an amazing quarterback? And the quarterback situation was probably a little bit better because I think he had Lunt or something like that during his time, right? He had West Lunt sometime. But other than that, like, there wasn't really that much difference in talent at Illinois. So I think the Garrick McGee hire wouldn't have really made a difference. So I would go pick the other one for just I just don't think Garrick McGee people are really ticked off about the whole Garrick McGee era, but I don't really think it was any different. I mean, Illinois football has not been good since uh, what's his name recruiting in like the '08 era. Forgot what his name is.
Wait,
I
you
think
don't
he's
think
like,
Garrick McGee was worse than Rod Smith, or you don't think it was a difference?
well, I don't think. I think he had the potential. Like, okay, you had a player like Keyshawn Vaughn, right, who now
Uh-huh.
is playing at Vanderbilt. He had that, and Vaughn, because of the talent that he had, could still have games like Reggie Corbin had.
Uh-huh.
But I think the talent, if you just look at his scheme versus Rod Smith, yeah, Rod Smith is a lot more expansive. He tries to get things open in space and stuff like that. But has it really made that much of a difference in terms of the win total? I think not in terms of production on offense,
Yes,
but in
I think
terms
so.
of in the win. I don't really, because I mean, what have they done? I mean, they've won like two, 3 or 4
Yeah, but
games.
I mean, the defense has been atrocious. And I don't think that's Rod Smith's fault that the win total hasn't been higher. I think in terms of stats, Rod Smith's offense was, astronomically higher than Garrick McGee's. And not just this, but in terms of recruiting, I think Rod Smith has done an astronomically better job than Garrick McGee. So I do think it's made a huge difference. You know, Garrick McGee never brought in. Okay, first off, he didn't play Reggie Corbin. He didn't play Keyshawn Vaughn, who have shown they can be productive at the Power 5 level. He misused the talent that was currently on the Illinois roster. Then he knew that the quarterback situation was absolute garbage. So Chase Crouch, Jeff George, he knew that they couldn't cut it, but he still rolled with them. He didn't even go out and get a bridge quarterback. He tried to get a bridge quarterback, but his name was Dwayne Lawson, and he couldn't even go to class. So that just didn't work out. And everyone knew that Dwayne Lawson wasn't going to be eligible, but Garrick McGee still rolled with that instead of taking the time to go out to the preps, instead of going out on the transfer market and getting a bridge quarterback. And then not only that, but he just rubbed every person on the Illinois roster in the wrong way. He didn't work well with Luke Buckus. Like I think in one story, I think it was like Gabe Meganson's story, one of the offensive linemen, he said like there's one point where he thought McGee and Buckus were just going to go at it. So it was a chemistry issue in terms of being a cohesive staff. He misused the talent again, like I said. So I think it makes a huge difference. I mean, maybe it doesn't show on the win total, but I think things would have been way different had you had Rod Smith from the very beginning. So that's my take on it. Zach, what do you think about it?
Yeah, Alex, I think from your comments there, you would reverse the Garrick McGee
Yeah, I
uh,
think so.
hire. Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm the same way, and for me, it all goes back to what you're saying: misusing the talent that was available to him on that roster. The amount of running backs who have had astronomically better numbers since they left Garrick McGee's offense, especially Keyshawn Vaughn. That's the one that sticks out to me. He's up high on some like award watch list for next
Yeah,
year, and like
SEC running back of the year or something.
yeah, and it's just crazy that McGee couldn't get the most out of him, and then he just had Reggie Corbin out there chilling on the bench when he could have had him out there running for thousands of yards. So it's for me, it's a misuse of talent. That's the main issue with me. That was kind of always the issue with me. His play calling was always kind of an issue for me. He was very third third down and 15. Let's run the ball up the middle
With
again.
Rayvon Bonner.
With Rayvon Bonner, who actually had a better year last year,
Oh yeah.
but that first year was rough.
Well, my only question to you guys about taking Rod Smith over um, Garrick McGee is if Rod Smith still was in that situation where he had Jeff George and Chase Crouch, would do you think the offense would be that much better given the quarterback situation even if like I know Crouch can run, right? So that would be this offense would work pretty well for Chase Crouch. But in terms of just throwing the ball and being more expansive, I don't really think. I mean, any of them were any better than what we have now.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing. Is like you can talk about the play calls and stuff like that, and I agree. Garrett McGee's play calls were atrocious. I mean, throwing little screen plays on like 3rd and 10 is like, what are you doing? Like, are you just trying to lose the game? Or I completely agree. But at the same time, you had to look at the quarterback situation. I don't think Rod Smith would have gotten anything out of them, even if he was.
Yeah. I mean, I think that obviously it's all what ifs, it's all hypotheticals, but I just think that Rod Smith has shown the ability to be a little bit more adaptable, even in just a 1-year sample size. Like, he didn't have A.J. Bush chucking passes down every single time. He knew that the strength of this offense last year was the run. He knew that A.J. Bush was an elite runner. He knew he had Reggie Corbin, he had Mike Epstein for a little bit, he had Rayvon Bonner, etc. So he used that to his advantage. And he knew that the wide receivers were but pretty bad. So I think that in the 1 year that he had, he showed an adaptability to, use what he had, as opposed to Garrett McGee, who's like, I'm just going to stick to what I've been doing, no matter who I have, whether I have Jeff George or whoever. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, all good thoughts from everyone. I think, Armand, you raised some good points. Maybe if the offensive numbers still wouldn't have been good if Rod Smith was the OC when Garrett McGee was, but maybe they would have been. It's all hypotheticals, as Alex said. But Armand, man, thanks for joining us on today's podcast, the first one in a few months here. So we're glad we're able to kick it off with you. So thanks for coming on, man. Where can the people find you on the internet?
Thank you for having me, Zach and Alex. You guys can find me on my Twitter handle at ACT03. That's at ACT03. And, just hit me up. My DMs are always open. So you guys just want to talk about something, just let me know. I'll try to do my best I can.
Awesome. And Alex, where can the people find you?
I barely tweet on my own personal account. So just find me, just DM the Armchair account, because that's where I do most of my best work,
Yeah, for sure. And you can find me at the Zach Leslie on Twitter. I tweet over there all the time, whether it's White Sox or Liverpool or movies or whatever. You can find me tweeting about that kind of stuff over there. And thank you all to all of you who follow the Armchair Illini account. We just hit 1,700 followers, so thank you. Continue to follow, subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts, and all that good stuff. And we will catch you on a more regular basis this summer. So thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.